Joe, I want to thank you for joining us. This is kind of a mixture between our podcast, the Financial Insights podcast, and one of our Casual Friday broadcasts that we do every once in a while on Fridays when it makes sense. I just want to quickly introduce you to people who are listening or watching and don't know who you are. You are a lot of things. A mortgage ninja, a wine Jedi. In fact, many people might know you from when you are at Precision Home Loans and you help people buy homes by helping them with their mortgages or help them with their investments by financing whatever other real estate purchases they're doing. Am I missing something about what you do at Precision?
That's pretty much sums it up. I'm the residential mortgage dude.
The residential mortgage dude, which is slow playing it a little bit. You're the residential mortgage ninja is what I like to call you. You
were also let's go with cyber ninja.
Cyber ninja. You're also a wine Jedi. And so if someone is watching or listening to this and they were at our wine tasting event, I guess it's been 2 weeks now. Or has it been a week? 2 weeks?
I think it's been a week.
A week. Boy, it's been a busy week. You helped walk us all through a trip around the world with wine.
Mm-hmm.
We tried 4 different wines that you selected. They were all fantastic. And we actually sent a survey, or we surveyed everybody to see what their favorite wine was. I don't recall which one won. But what I want to know is which of the 4 is your favorite?
Ooh, that's a great question. So it was, well, number one, thank you very much for the invite and having me and Kelly work together on it. It was a challenge. It definitely accepted. My favorite had to be the Gruner Veltliner from Austria. But I think the one with the best story, though, was the last one, which was the Chianti that they make in the cellar of Machiavelli's old house. Like,
you're absolutely right. That wins the story.
That's cool.
Yes. Although I will say the first one, I don't drink a whole lot of white wine, but the one from Austria I thought was awesome. And that also had a story. Like, it grows in rocks. The grapes grow in rocks without any dirt, right?
It's crazy because the vineyard goes back to the 12th century. And I've actually walked all through that region, both me and Cookie. And what's bananas is the hillside is like this. It's so steep that the soil doesn't even sit on the mountain. And there's actually these cables that run top to bottom. So when you go to harvest, you actually got to hook your like carabiner on the cables and then like ice pick your way up the side of the mountain in order to harvest.
That's like climbing the back of Half Dome.
It is.
Pick your grapes.
And one of the crazy things is the vineyard that we were walking through, there is an old cellar / wine bunker. And by wine bunker, back in 1943, 1944, the military actually used it for top secret meetings. And as I'm standing in this room and you look up, there's all of like the roots from the vines that are 50 feet above you coming through the rock.
That's wild. Crazy. That is wild. Wine's always better when it comes with a good story, you know? But if someone is listening or watching right now, it's not for the wine stories. It's for the mortgage questions.
There we go.
Because we are in some wild times right now. I think we can all agree. And you don't need to be a mortgage ninja or a financial advisor to know what's going on with interest rates, how it's affecting portfolios, but also affecting mortgages, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is just from the New York Times, I think, from yesterday. We're talking about, mortgage rates and interest rates have seeped into everything, right? It's like it's not just in CNBC or Fox Business land. It's also in kind of Good Morning America and all over the place. Can you give us a rundown of what's going on with mortgages, residential mortgages here real quick?
Man, it's been a bananas year. The interest rate spike is the highest it's been in almost 4 decades. So just to give you kind of a quick like roller coaster is at the beginning of, let's say, January of 2022, rates are hovering around 3.5%, and now they're at 7 or higher. So with literally within 10 months, interest rates have more than doubled. And I mean, honestly, it's crippled the industry, the housing market, new construction. Title companies have giant layoffs. Mortgage companies are selling themselves to other institutions to keep the doors open. I mean, I only say this for context, but I've been doing this for 22 years, and 2008 wasn't even like this.
Really?
So this is like a Chernobyl style event.
Has it just so it's dried up altogether? Who are buying houses right now? Who's applying for mortgage? Is anybody?
It's, unfortunately, the only cases are divorce, when people have to get the other person off the mortgage, or kind of a loan of last resort for people that have some poor financial things that they have to take care of, and accessing their equity is the last stop in the road. But other than that, I mean, most families have all put their project on hold.
Yeah, you actually sent over a chart that I thought was interesting to see, and this is 30-year mortgages going back clear to the 70s. We've been higher, but a move up this fast is pretty crazy. I mean, you want to walk us through this chart that you sent over?
Man, it's just so bananas. So if you hover your mouse cursor over that chart, it should show you like the interest rate on a specific day.
Oh, this is a screenshot of the chart, so I don't have that specifically. But yeah, I mean, you can kind of see like we're careening pretty quickly up to almost that 8% level right here. And we haven't been there since before the tech wreck in 2000.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And it looks, from just going back to my 2022 year-to-date summary, I mean, that huge taking off like a rocket that you see on the right-hand side of the graph, I mean, it's crippled, unfortunately, a lot of things, because we're a family at the beginning of the year could afford a house, comfortably at, say, 3.5%.
Yep.
4.5 is okay. We can do that. 5.5 is a super duper stretch. And then you go any higher than that and you just can't do it. And you end up with a mass cancellation. So it's that right-hand side of the graph is really poignant.
So when we have inflation, sometimes inflation will spiral higher, because you'll say, oh, well, I'm thinking about getting a new television, let's say, and that television costs $200 today, but by the end of the year it might be $250, and after that it could be $300 or $350. So I need to hurry up and buy the television now, and all of that increasing demand is what spirals inflation higher. So in the case, like early on, did you see people looking and saying, oh, a 30-year mortgage is no longer 3%, it's up to 4%. I need to hurry and find a place before it goes higher? Was there a surge in activity before rates really started to almost double?
There was a smidge, of activity. I think the bigger tail of the tape is saying new construction, where with supply chain issues and labor shortages, and home builders not knowing when the house was going to be built. Is it going to be done in June? Is it going to be done in October? So families couldn't do a forward interest rate lock. So lock their rate today, and know when the house is built, that's the deal that they're going to get, because the builders themselves had no timeline.
I see.
So going back to that spike, as people are watching their homes sort of being built, then they just cancel their contract because they're like, I can't afford it, which then jams the builder with, now they've got inventory that they hadn't planned on. Who do we sell it to?
This sounds like we're still in the early innings of a real mess, short of the Federal Reserve turning around. And of course, the Fed announced on another 0.75% rate increase on Tuesday of this week, and kind of even reiterated their intention of really cranking it up. It may be a while before this starts to ease, right?
Yeah, it's going.
Or do you think mortgage rates have a potential of coming down in the next 12 months?
I do. I think one of the I'm a common sense guy, so I certainly watch all of the metrics, and every single day I read all the articles, and I try and keep my ear really close to the ground. But one of the I think lagging indicators is like in retail sales numbers.
Okay.
So when a family goes to buy a house, you buy furniture, you go to Best Buy, you get that TV,
Right.
you go to Target and you get the plastics, and you hire U-Haul and
Yep.
all of these things. So as that housing crunch started really happening, say 90 days ago, those retail sales numbers I don't think are fully fleshed out, and there's a storm on the horizon. I don't think that's baked into numbers.
Interesting. So we've got some hunkering down that still needs to go on, and and the crazier part here, it seems, is that here, full disclosure, you and your team helped me with my home loan
Mm-hmm.
almost 2 years ago.
Yeah, time
Yeah.
flies.
Yeah, right. And 2 years ago, we were all getting these absurdly low interest rates. I told my wife we're going to die here with the kind of mortgage that we've got on our place. And I imagine other people in that same situation where you look around and you say, we can't do better than this. There are a lot of existing, you're talking about the builders, but the existing home sales are in the toilet also, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
There's just no movement.
No movement. And there's another, I don't know if you have access to that Excel spreadsheet for
Yeah, I
maybe
can pull that up here.
sometime. That one's super interesting as far as where we're at today and where we've been over the last 18, 24 months.
Here, I'll share this. This may be difficult to see if someone's watching on their phone or something. Maybe I can get this a little bit bigger for us. But this was the spreadsheet that you sent over.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a spot on here we should be looking at and highlighting specifically?
I mean, so what we're looking at, so this is information for Fresno County, and it goes back a number of years.
Yeah.
And maybe if you go down to the bottom right hand corner of your Excel and just kind of blow it up a little bit, it basically on a month over month basis shows the number of homes that have been listed, and then the homes that have gone pending as far as sales. And what you see is this huge inventory glut starting to build, and the number of homes going under contract plummeting.
So the proof here is in the numbers, where it's like you can't. And scarier still is the trajectory, right? It's getting worse, not better, here in this early stage. I mean, and you're saying this is worse than 2008.
I think we're not going to, let me preface by saying, I strongly believe that we are not going to have a housing market crash. And I can just touch on a couple of bullet points there. So since the Financial Reform Act back in 2012, things like 100% financing, interest only, 2-year adjustable rate mortgages, negatively amortizing mortgages, like those things don't really exist anymore. Congress legislated that out. So, and I know you've had friends or some clients say like, oh my gosh, I went to get a mortgage and they wanted everything in my right kidney and a hair sample.
Yes, they hold you by the ankles and shake.
Exactly. It's kind of like going to the airport and having, going through security.
The TSA.
Yeah. But versus like the old days where you just like cruise on through the line.
Yeah.
I really think mortgages have been underwritten to Armageddon. So you're not going to have like the default rate and foreclosures like that. That's not a thing. And then you've got a whole slew of consumer protection laws that have been passed that even if someone is not able to make their house payment, it's not like the old days, like you went 90, 120 days past due and there's a notice on your door. Like it can take 1.5 years, 2 years now for that to happen.
I mean, I guess that's encouraging. Well, and I've tried to say to everybody, lightning doesn't strike twice. Everybody's saying, oh, well, this is the housing bubble versus 2008 all over again. No, 2008 was 2008. Just like, there wasn't a tech bubble burst in 2008. It was housing bubble burst. And before that is other stuff, right? So it's not always the same thing here.
And one other quick quick thing is that you really I don't see a lot in articles where people are talking about it, but population growth. So from 2008 through say 2012, families, they could go buy an existing resale home that was bigger, badder, better, acreage, pool,
Yep.
for cheaper than it was to buy new construction. So new construction really didn't kick off again until 2016, 2017 in volume,
Oh,
which
really?
is basically a decade of time. So you've got a generation of people that want to buy a house, but inventory was not keeping up with it.
Yeah. Well, and that's because home builders were just still gun shy from overdoing it before 2008, right? Is
Yep,
that really what it amounted to?
correct. Correct.
Now you mentioned, well, with mortgages being higher, kind of as you were talking about this, you can buy points to reduce your mortgage. Can you explain that a little bit and then tell us if that makes any sense for someone to do? If you're having to get a mortgage and it's really high, can you buy your way back down to a sensible rate or what you might view as a sensible rate?
So everything about Ready to Share, this is definitely not a Joe comment. This is just an industry deal. So a
Yeah.
point is a percentage of the loan amount that's being borrowed.
Okay.
Generally speaking, paying 1% of the loan amount will reduce the interest rate in this climate 0.25%. So it's not earth shattering. So you need to figure out like the monthly payment savings and does it make sense? But
Sure.
the flip side of that is what goes up must come down. So there will be an interest rate correction. I don't think forking out, a couple $1,000 to save $30 a
To go from
month.
7 to 6 3/4.
Exactly. And then, 18 months from now, you turn around and refinance and you just burned your own money, which wasn't smart.
Now,
So,
do you see, speaking of refinancing, I'm sure refinancing, I mean, you can see it like refinancing is down like 98%. I think
mhm,
people who are refinancing, I mean, you can correct me. I imagine if someone's refinancing or they're taking equity out of their home, it's only because of extreme need. Because even that still may be cheaper than paying a 25% interest rate on your credit card, or someone who's in a real jam might be
right.
doing that.
Right.
But do you think people could still, if they find a house and they get a mortgage that's higher than they want to pay, the prospects of refund? I know you're kind of betting on the future and rates coming down, and it's a bit of a gamble. But I mean, is it still possible, you think, or would maybe make sense for someone to say, "Oh, I found this house that I really like. I'm just going to get the mortgage with understanding I'm just going to have to refinance it 2, 3, 4 years from now"?
Yeah, I mean, there's something that has kind of come back on the mortgage scene that I haven't seen in a number of years called there's variations of it, but it's basically I'll use one of them, a 3-2-1 rate buy down. So say the rate's 7%. There's a fee that is paid for the first year, instead of paying 7, you pay 4. And then a year goes by, and then the rate goes from 4 to 5, then 6 to 7. So you kind of ease into the mortgage
Yeah.
on the assumption, number one, being comfortable with the payment, and then number two, you kind of have the benefit of the lower rate, and then you're going to refinance it out.
That makes sense. And that's going on. I mean, that's actually a pretty good strategy if you need to buy a place or found a place that you're committed to buying. You've done the math, and a good way to maybe get a lower rate now with the expectation that you may or may not be able to finance, but it's not some adjustable rate that you could get cooked on
Right.
unknowingly down the road.
And sellers are the ones that are, as they property sit on the market longer and longer,
Sure.
it's like, how do we move this? Well, offering hey, your rate could be 4%, it's an incentive. So instead of reducing their price over and over and over again, you can offer that buy down.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Are you seeing things like this go on? I know you're like the residential real estate guru, but there are investors that borrow as well. Have you seen the borrowing for real estate investment dry up also?
I have. I mean, really, the only ones that, at least personally, that I'm working on are 1031 exchanges, which it's you gotta kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But it's the wanting to buy an investment property, really, with interest rates and the payment and versus what you can rent the house out for, you're now either a wash or you're slightly underwater. So it's
the math has changed for everybody in the last 12 months, no matter what you're up to.
Yep.
Well, this is I don't want to say a bleak outlook. It's not necessarily a bleak outlook, but it is a bleak assessment of maybe where we are at this very moment today. But
Oh, it's a realistic, like, as of this second, what is happening. That's what's happening.
Yeah. Well, thankfully storms pass,
Mm-hmm.
right? And things improve down the road. It's just some of this will be how much further down the road. And it seems as though everybody's almost content with staying put for the moment with whatever situation they're in with their houses because, well, I guess maybe because they have no other choice.
Well, and as a quick dovetail to that comment is I think the next burgeoning market is going to be people remodeling their house, because you're not going to move. You don't want to give up your 2-point whatever, 3-point whatever, but in order to do it,
you got to add a bedroom.
Yeah, and then so families will reach out to me and say, "How do we get the money?" Well, you don't want to touch the mortgage, so getting an equity line of credit's the way to do it.
Yep.
But as I just caution families, that sword can cut both ways, because as the Fed keeps raising interest rates, that equity line rate and payment keeps going up and up and up.
Because the equity line rates are variable.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That can be.
So it's definitely eyes wide open State of the Union.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, when money is loose, people don't have to do people don't tend to do, you should, but people don't tend to do quite as much diligence on making sure the math all works out, because they assume that everything's going to stay pretty sunny skies, if you will, but now as things have tightened up across the board, and it's not just for mortgage stuff, it's for what you're investing in with your investments in your retirement, everything needs to be kind of checked twice or 3 times even. We've gone for about 20 something minutes. I want to wrap up first by saying your Nordiques hat is absolute fire.
Hey, right?
I love it.
I'm glad you remember that. It's funny because when I got it, Cookie, my wife, was like, who are the Quebec Nordiques? I'm like, it's the classic. It's the classic.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. You need a Minnesota North Stars hat or something to go with it.
Even better. Yep. Yeah. I do have a Montreal Expos hat, and it's funny because it's only people your my age or older that actually remember them.
You have to be a certain vintage to get it.
Yeah, the good old days.
Absolutely. Well, let's wrap this. I want to wrap this up with a question, because you're on top of all things hot, like culturally. Tell me what the best thing is that you're watching, reading, or listening to right now. Ooh. Are you a podcast guy? Are you a Netflix guy or HBO? What's going on?
I'm a D, all of the above. So on my podcast, I mean, there's some religious stuff that I listen to, but one of them I want to give a shout out. This is absolutely fantastic. It's the podcast is called Hidden Forces.
Oh, I've not heard of it.
Yeah, it's hosted by a gentleman, Dimitri Kofinas.
Okay.
And it is, I'll send it to you. It's absolutely fantastic. And the way I stumbled across it was actually, he was a guest on another podcast called Bankless, which is about crypto and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I found it so intriguing that I was like, oh, I got to go subscribe and listen to that one too.
That's how I've come across many of the podcasts I listen to, because you some economist on someone else's podcast, and you're like, oh, I want to listen to more of that guy. And then you flip to whatever the new one is. So that's what you're listening to. What are you watching or reading?
Ooh, on reading, I think I shared the link. There's a book.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big World War II buff. There's a book called A Higher Call, which is it's a World War II story. And I'll give you just 15 seconds on it. So there's a B-17 crew that was doing a bombing run over Germany, and their plane was completely shot up. I mean, it was like amazing. Like, if you see pictures of it, it's amazing that it was even airborne. There was a German fighter pilot that pulled up alongside the plane to shoot it down, but he saw the crew that was bleeding and hanging out of the airplane. And instead of shooting the plane down, he escorted it out of Germany and back to, or over the Atlantic Ocean before he turned back home. And then fast forward, say 30 years later, the two pilots of the B-17 and the German Messerschmitt actually connected and became great friends.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's called again, A Higher Call, and the quote that I gave is, "It's chivalry in the war-torn skies of Europe."
That's
Outstanding
very
book.
cool. That's very
Outstanding book.
cool. I will have to check. I'm going to add that to my reading list, which is growing by the day because I feel like I'm running out of time. Watching anything?
Ooh, let's see here.
If you need a recommendation, I can give you one right now.
Hey, fire away.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
The old movie?
Well, no, there is a new version of it on Netflix that just came out.
Outstanding. Okay, I am actually writing that down right now.
So it is not like the book, right? Where All Quiet on the Western Front, they go home and everything. You know, the guy's family doesn't understand. You know, the how difficult war is, and so there's the aftermath of war. This just all takes place during World War I. It's rough. It's like not a casual watch.
Okay.
It's pretty rough. It's a pretty rough World War I movie, but it's very good. And I will say, you need to watch it, or my suggestion is to watch it in its original form, which is to say German language, English subtitles.
Okay.
So just like Squid Game, don't watch it dubbed. Okay. Otherwise it's not as good. Sure. You got to watch it in its original language. But it's great. It's the quality of the filming is like, the cinematography is fantastic, and you know, it just reminds everybody that war is hell. You know, yeah. It's a good flick.
Well, I will definitely remember what it is, because literally daily when people ask, you know, "Hey Joe, how's it going? What are you working on?" That's my response. All's quiet on the Western Front.
There you go. Well, then you have to watch the latest version of this. That's good. Well, cool. Well, I think we're going to leave it there. I would love to have you back to do this again.
Love to do it, man. This is, I feel like saying a long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah. Well, you have a special insight on what's going on with mortgages and the housing market. And quite honestly, when we talk about interest rates going up, the interest rate that everybody understands or knows, maybe they don't know how interest rates are, how we get to whatever a mortgage interest rate is, but that's what everybody looks at, because it's the one that they understand, because their home is oftentimes one of the biggest investments. And so they understand how it relates there. So your insight on this subject matter that's so important to everybody is hugely helpful. So I'd love to have you back again.
Absolutely. Do this again. Can I ask one final parting non-work related question?
Yeah, absolutely. Fire away.
Favorite early 80s cartoon?
Oh boy. It's got to be Voltron.
Yes. I was going to say
it's got to be Voltron. I mean, I liked them. Oh boy, G.I. Joe was up there too for me.
Thundercats
was great. Thundercats was great. I was, you know, we played a lot of G.I. Joe in my neighborhood growing up, but man, I really loved Voltron too. So, yes. And my son, Henry, has, he went through a Voltron phase himself with the new version of it, which is more like anime, kind of not as good as the old stuff, but what is, you know,
nothing beats the original.
That's right. How about you? What's your jam?
I was literally going to say Voltron, and I still have it.
We have a leg. My son has a blue leg, you know, that flips out into the lion, but we don't have any other parts. That's awesome. The only thing we could find at my parents' house, but that's cool that you've got the full one. So Voltron, was there a close number
or Thundercats? You know, it's funny, and I know I won't keep you. I always enjoy our visits, and it's one of those questions I had never asked you, but I was sick a couple years ago. And I laid in bed and I was like, hey, I'm going to revisit He-Man and Thundercats, which I haven't seen in 35 plus years.
Yeah.
He-Man did not hold up well.
Oh, really?
No, it did not hold up well. Thundercats, though, I motored through all the seasons. It was great.
That's cool. Well, we all had a He-Man phase. And the question is, you know, did you have the battle action He-Man? Or did you have the, you know, which version of Skeletor did you have?
Right.
You know, but it's interesting. I'll have to go back and watch an episode. It's interesting to hear that it didn't hold up, because you can go back. I don't, you know, it's funny. It sounds like I watch a lot of Netflix. I don't, but I have watched there is like movies that made us and toys that made us.
Great series.
Yeah,
series.
and they have one on He-Man, and basically, it was they had to come up with a toy, and then the toys were doing okay, but so they needed a show to go with it, and so it was like the tail was wagging. It was interesting. So, for all that old stuff, and the old movies are cool to find how they made it. I watched Die Hard, also was another
classic.
Fantastic. So
the Christmas movie.
That's right. Well, good stuff. Well, Joe, thank you. Let's do this again, and not too long, and and hang in there during this Chernobyl nuclear winter with mortgages.
Every day is an adventure, but we're blessed to be on this side of the lilies, right?
Absolutely. Good stuff, man. We'll talk soon.
Awesome. See you, man.